The morning of a Christmas Day, and we are hopeful that our response rate could be very much different. But I would like to appreciate both the province, the city of Cape Town, and our team from National, which were able to learn. The beneficiaries have all been verified, identified the structures. We now are going to move around and encourage our people not to rebuild using the old bent material because it's a health hazard, and we will be, as the national, distributing a new material to allow them to be able to build. And secondly, we are also looking, of course, into a long-term solution. You know, some of the problems, for example, like fire blocking here, is not relatively easy for the province or the city to be able to do that because of how congested the space is. And sometimes in some areas people build even on the servitude. We're going to also be engaging with people on how they could assist government to be able to work with us so that our response rate, but also their safety, because disaster is about prevention. It's not about response in the main. So our intention is to try and prevent the disasters that happens every time in our informal settlements. But ultimately, we need to be able to formalize our informal settlements. We need to learn from what we've been doing better, improve on it, harness. Of course, there are challenges, but we are learning from them and how best could we be able to achieve and deal with the situation. We are still anticipating, because of the wind, the strong wind, that there could be more fires, but they will find us more and much better ready in terms of the response culminating into this weekend where the material will be delivered. Thank you very much.
Minister, by when do you expect the building material to arrive?
We're expecting it to arrive in the early hours of Sunday afternoon. Obviously, it's quite a number of sites, quite a number of beneficiaries. As I've said, they've already been identified in various areas. But then there's supposed to be sorting out, remember, and then a distribution into those. But we will be having a working weekend, all of us here, to ensure that as it arrives, it gets to be divided accordingly, dispatched. Hopefully that we will not have a rainy weather, which may stop some and make some of the difficulties in distributing the material.
Minister, how many fires in total have we had in Cape Town?
Well, I think we've had 13, but as we are sitting in the hall, we're getting one report of a possible fire as well. So, as I'm saying, it's not a good anticipation, but we're saying in terms of planning, we're anticipating that our teams may be needed to respond, to be more responsive into the 13, 14 that we're ultimately having. In fact, our team was receiving pictures as we're sitting here. We don't know how in-depth the fire is. We will still be dispatching people from here into that area. So that they could be able to deal with the beneficiaries and the counts thereof.
Where is the area, Minister?
No, I wouldn't want to disclose that for now.
Besides that, Minister, some communities don't want to be placed in community halls. Your comment on that?
Well, it's fair and understandable. Actually, it's not the approach we are taking even here. You see, we are coming from a municipal community hall of which we have not placed people. Our very same own standards, as I have said, is that we need to respond faster, allow people to rebuild, and they start to, community centers. Then you have got, sometimes you have to separate the children from their mothers, you have to separate the families, and you don't want, when you are facing any form of shock into your system, to be separated. You will always want, as a father, for example, to be with your children and your children to feel safe. But what forces us is that you can't put the entire family, men, children, and everybody in one center. Then you tend to separate them. And this is what makes our communities not to be happy. And that is why it is important that our response rate must always be speediest, promptly, and timely, so that we lessen the discomfort that our families are feeling.
And the communities that are affected here, where are they accommodated now?
No. Most of them are accommodated with relatives. Some of them, as you can hear, they're trying to rebuild. Churches have availed. Some civic organizations have also availed spaces to keep them. But our intention is that as the material arrives, we take them back to the spaces where they've been staying so they can rebuild their lives.
Minister, there's been calls from many affected fire victims this week for proper housing and not just building material to rebuild their shacks. What is your response being?
Well, that's why I was saying ultimately the program that we have is the eradication of informal settlements. But remember, it takes quite a bit of planning, takes land availability, takes putting of services. We need to be, it takes environmental assessment of the land, whether it's suitable for people to be able to live there. Is it habitual? Does it meet all the standards? So that you don't recreate the same problem again. So those programs are there to be responsive into all. And that is why we encourage our people to partner with government in terms of understanding rather than acting outside the legislative mandate.
And Minister, on the complaints and concerns by some of the affected people about the budget allocation that is not used maximum to accommodate the destitute and affected families?
Well, look, when you account, you would want every cent to be spent. But honestly, we have got very minimal challenges in terms of lack of spending. It's Free State, it's a portion of the Western Cape, which they've got problems really with land availability, buying and stock to be able to build, and the material that needs to, not rather the land and the services that we need to be able to put. But we also need to understand in the context of growth for cities and metros, which is what they are facing. If any city grows 5% beyond, it is unfortunately not possible to chase each and every resident who come here. That is why we have got, if you talk to schools, you'll have overpopulation. If you talk to health, you'll have overpopulation. If you talk to us on human settlements, you'll have overpopulation. If you talk to the city or ESCOM about provision of energy, or there will be. And that's the language and the problems that cities do face, because people go for convenience, availability of opportunities in terms of employment and all that, which unfortunately create other social problems that we'll have to deal with. But if we partner with our communities, particularly them partnering with municipalities, it makes the problems more manageable rather than solving the problem itself of everybody staying in places which are wetlands, which are not even approved for human settlements. If we work together, we could be able to minimize that.
Minister, I might have missed maybe your first address, but Deputy Minister yesterday, she spoke out about the city of Cape Town refusing to allow some of the fire victims here in Dunedin in particular to be accommodated at the local community facilities, where a lot other people were sleeping on the streets, those who were able to go to families or churches and so forth. So what is the plan today? Because we just spoke to one gentleman here earlier on. He was saying that he had to sleep outside holding his blanket, and then those who are rebuilding here, obviously the structures are not complete, but they had to be inside because they can't be outside.
No. Well, that's why I was saying we've been discussing some and also aligning our policies from a national level to a city level to ensure that they are aligned, one, but two, are all responsive. In fact, the earlier question, people don't want the same thing. Others say put us into halls, others say don't put us into halls. The response strategy is to ensure that we become speedily and get to assist our people to be able to rebuild for themselves. And that is why our first ballpark in our discussion was, how do we speedily get the material to be here so that people could be able to rebuild. If you look into it as a short-term measure, even our own, I'm told, I'm a new kid on the block here, I'm told even our own response rate in some of the areas and where the fires had happened, we should have responded much promptly than in the way that we did in this term of the disaster. But I'll be going around, I'll be seeing if there's still that type of a problem. We're all here as leaders, we should be able to be responsive to those problems.
Cape Town's request to devolve the relief funding, because they're saying that back in the days they used to respond.
They are not the only one, actually. They are not the only one in the province. Yes, we're having that discussion. In fact, they are indicating to me that the last ministerial MEC's meeting, MINMEC was beginning to engage into such. They are not the only one. I went to KZN in my other capacity, and this is one of the issues which were raised in terms of devolving of functions and devolving so that they could be able to responsibly hit the ground, as they will be closer to where the disaster has taken place. I think we could be able to learn from how things can facilitate to make them better for our.
Arriving for the rebuilding?
Now I'm doing a re-interview. You will catch up from your friends. They are arriving on Saturday. On Sunday, likely, yes. And we will be distributing to ensure that everyone is here. I'm sorry you're late.
Well, Alicia, that was the Human